Cynthia is known as Canada's Mary Oliver. Cynthia Sharp is the Writers International Network Vancouver Poet Laureate. She's the author of Ordinary Light, a first prize winner in the Sunshine Coast Writers and Editors Society BC Author Awards, as well as in the International Impact Book Awards in Sustainability and Contemporary Poetry. She also penned Rainforest and Russet and The Light Bearers in the Sand Dollar Graviton, which is not a poem but a novel, a very interesting fantasy novel. Her poems and reviews can be found in many literary journals, including CV2, Untethered, and the Pitkin Review, and have been nominated for the Pushcart Prize and Best of the Net Anthology. She is well known online and in person for her poetry workshops. The Zen of Poetry presents many of her handouts and writing exercises for readers to use individually and in their own group settings. So now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Zen of Poetry, for which I did the foreword, and for which I feel probably is one of the best poetry books I have, how to write poetry in a very long time. Because Cynthia, what she does is she takes poetry to another level. And this level is a very Zen level, and that is why she has, you know, she's retitled her How to Write Poetry book as The Zen of Poetry. And truly, as I read the book, I felt that she had added so much more to this little poetry book that was teaching us how to write poetry. And I'm really looking for my forward, because when I did the forward for her, I read the book twice and I felt that it wasn't enough. It just wasn't enough time. I needed more. So here's what I wrote, just to give it some clarity to you. When I picked up Cynthia Sharp's How to Write Poetry years ago, I was already writing my own poetry and was intrigued by the first sentence. Cynthia Sharp created a treatise for aspiring and experienced poets to find inspiration and information. The first sentence of this book draws you into it. In her introduction, she says, I believe that anyone who wishes to can write poetry. Now, I have to tell you, this is a very big sentence for anyone to write, because a lot of poets don't feel that everyone can write poetry and they want you to be writing in a certain way. But Cynthia and I are united in this fact that anybody who wants to write poetry can write poetry. Now, will it be the greatest poetry they've ever written? Maybe not. But you can start to write poetry. And as you continue to write it, it will get better and better for you. Um, Over the years, I've come to believe that this is true, but Cynthia expressed it so clearly. If you have the desire to write poetry, you can do it. So maybe you might be unsure of how to start, but then there's this wonderful book that has been revised to add even more to your knowledge. And someone who wants to start writing poetry will find this book to be the best tool they have ever used. And I've actually been remarking to my friends who are doing workshops that this is such a great book and they really should be using it. And one of my friends is starting to use this book with a senior workshop. So I'm very excited. Um, Writers can then use found objects, which Cynthia makes a point of telling you what found objects you should have, and brainstorm how you can use your object, your feelings about these objects. Sorry, I'm too excited about this. She suggests passing the basket of objects around so everyone can see it. So you put a basket in front of you and you put all these objects that you've brought to this workshop. And then everyone can see your objects. And you can do this alone. You can gather a basket of objects alone, or you can have a whole workshop. And it's wonderful. I won't go through the entire forward because the thing that it's a little long. But what I think is if you've read the first one, the biggest enhancement to this book are the chapters on editing. Cynthia goes into detail on how to look at your poem for editing. Now, many people have a problem with editing their poems. They don't know how to start. She gives many examples, and she has a great deal of her own work with the reader. She shows how 5 years later, a poem she thought was finished needed to be edited and became stronger from changing two words to one word. And I found in poetry that every single word counts. So when Cynthia changed two words to one word, that changed her entire poem. And so I just think that if you're a poet who has had a lot of experience in poetry, even though you have had that experience, I feel that anyone can really benefit from being, part of this book. And you become part of the book. It actually gets into you, and you feel like Cynthia is saying this to you in her voice. And because it is so well written and so well done, I think anyone can either, if you don't want to learn to write poetry, but you know how to write poetry, you can learn how to edit. And if you do know how to edit, you can learn how to give a workshop. And if you know how to give a workshop, you will get tips that will help you to make your workshop stronger. So I think in every sense of the word, Cynthia has written a poetry book for everyone. So that's it.
Thank you so much, Barbara, and thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And of course, the book is free to download until midnight tonight, the ebook version, and there's also a paper version. So Barbara did a really good job of explaining what the book is, and also the book was my growth as a poet. I started out with my early poetry, and as I grew as a poet, I've gone back and added in more and learned more. I'm still learning so much. So I added in the editing section after my MFA. I got to learn a lot from Juliana Spar. So what I'm going to do now is read you my poems that are in the book. So you have a sense of what it is. It's workshop resources. And I also like to set a tone. When I'm doing a workshop, I tend to set a peaceful tone. I like to have safe space to be able to create. And so this is an extension of that. And so these are just some of the poems that I use at the beginning of workshops. And we'll just share about 15 minutes of my poetry, and then we'll have the guest readers on. So this is one I like to have with the basket. The basket of resources is sitting there on the table. And I like to just think, breathe deeply. Breathe deeply, moments in the stillness. What the moss on the maple tells us, or each angle of sunlight reveals. And remember to let the trees and flowers and colors speak. For a lot of my poetry, it's walking around outside in Vancouver through the forests and imagining that every flower, I mean, has a story, every tree has a story. And of course, in crowds, every person has a story. So this one was written during the pandemic and it's called Earth Medicine. When sunlight permeates rainforest winter and blackbirds ascend from violet bark, cumulus drift into ancient dragonflies, floating free in the wind. On those rare days when the blue in the raven's wings shines in the light, go through the open doors. So that's also for everyone to trust yourself, go outside, get your walk in, bring your pen and paper. The book starts out as well just by saying we can get poetry from what's right outside the window. So this is my secret. A lot of my similes and metaphors and lines are literally what's outside my window. Um, so I live in Vancouver. There are beautiful little gardens to slow down the traffic. The garden outside my window one day had poppies. So I just wrote poppies and dragonflies in the grace of the wind, ancestral spirits call. And I thought, oh, that's kind of a three-line poem. But there were literally poppies and dragonflies in the grace of the wind, and the last line just added something to it. I called the book Zen because I like relaxing into that Zen zone where I feel like poetry comes from. So these are other ones that, these are some of my early poems. They were just what's going on. You know, Vancouver's amazing when we get snow. We haven't this year, but I wrote snow in the rainforest, frosting the green like candlelight. Turn off all the noise and give yourself this day. So a lot of what became the first little book, How to Write Poetry, were my notes in my journal. I feel like my notes to myself that you can do it, you can do it, you can believe in yourself, you can do it, you can also exercise. They started to become poems. They were just all my little notes to myself. When I went to Goddard for my MFA, my writing instructor, Juliana Spar, who's one of my favorite echo poets, taught me to kind of embrace the messiness and to turn that journal into poetry and not be afraid to turn those journal entries into longer poems. So I started doing that. I'll share some of those as well. I'll do one more that was just on the balcony. This is for all the flowers. There is nowhere that I need to be, only the desire to stand out in the sun. So that's for everybody. I think that writing comes from allowing ourselves to do it, to just decide that we're allowed. Um, I know Candace James liked this one and encouraged me a lot with it. It was also in my Rainforest and Russet book that she published at Silverbow. This is a handout I give in my sensory writing workshops. The workshop that Jarena and I did at Burnaby Public Library. It's just called What Stories Are in Your Hands? And after this event is finished, I'm hoping people might take 10 minutes to answer this question on your own. Just pick up a pen and paper after we're done here tonight and tell me what stories are in your hands. Put them in your journal. When you look at your palms, what stories do they hold? What spirits have you loved? What work have you done? What have your hands built? What children have they held? Have they washed dishes, served coffee, poured tea, painted pictures, cleaned the containers, wiped the room down? Have they soothingly filtered sand or tenderly touched the smooth ocean-washed stones by the sea? What strength is in your fingertips? Do they lightly brush the hair from a child's eyes, press deeply into the strings of a guitar, gently caress your partner's skin? What stories are in your hands? And so I hope everyone answers that question sometime tonight or tomorrow morning. I think it lends itself to prose poetry or poems. Then I mentioned Juliana Spar got me to kind of take my messy writing in my journal and turn it into longer poems. So I also have a section on here in the book called Writing from the Body. And of course, I didn't invent these ideas. Like sensory writing, writing from the body, avoiding cliche, using imagery, turning things into similes and metaphors. These are ideas in creative writing. And what this little book is my personal take on it. Okay. I don't know why that happened, but here we go. So this one, I also got into a more serious section in the middle because we do need some contrast in our poetry. So I called this one was about having endometriosis and feeling sorry for myself. Um, I feel like my writing from the body poems were a little bit me feeling sorry for myself and also writing about real issues. So for everyone with no one to dedicate to. A hysterectomy, the specialist advises. I fondle the silver links of my ancestry chain, solid as cysts, thumb amber and amethyst beads. Revered selenite moonstone magic, where will my womb go? my desire to nurture children. Ropey tissue is the longest line out of me, where continuity is meant to emerge. Grandchildren to inherit memories. This overachieving uterus, fertile only with clots I pretend are infants, births fleshy tissue stones, sinewy strands of almost, in the gravity of supermoons. Twins I dream as cramps sway with the pull of binary stars. Boy and girl babies I name. Sunflower and poppy potpourri made music. But when is it my turn to nurse lasting connection? I hold on to my womb, give my body more time to weave silk. Pretend that fibroids are tiny fingers, new lives who press palms in my uterine wall, like handprint echoes on the cave walls of Cueva de las Manos. Time travel to future dreams. And also had one on dealing with concussion for everyone who's had to deal with concussion. And the frustration of, that you used to know the word, but you can't get it now. And you used to be good at this, but it's not coming right now. And that you just have to rest and take care of yourself. And that it will come, but you need rest. But I called it Silver Dawn, a litany for concussion. I knew I'd won the lottery of solitude, delicate chimes, the turquoise of an abalone shell, an iridescent spectrum of shimmering soprano, lifting me into the heart of characters, a magic realist dimension of rainforest duet. New stories a requiem to missing memory, an elegy to the decades that sang euphonies through me. Tangerine, lemon, lime, new sand in the sky, light from an ended star. In a cantata of elevation, sparkly frost on a winter beach transports me home. Lavender tears sing for colors I no longer cantillate, an echo of notes, like the specter of my grandmother's warmth. Icicle tunes unfold along the frozen river, a hymn to changing seasons. I read Wordsworth family letters, searching for my words, at home in theirs. Winter sun setting in rose, I embrace new ways to effloresce. The fluorescence of imaginary worlds pulsates between lines. I lay laurels on the podium, blends of harmony in autumn hydrangea, waves of sea blossoms to inner world light. So that was just like when I learned to rest and slow down, my fantasy stories came and told me, that they wanted to be written. So I feel like rest brings out something better. Mm. I'm gonna just skip ahead to a lot of travel. So I added in some travel poems or a new addition to this book. And one of them was a prompt by Jude Neal where she said, add a day to any month and tell me what you would do with it. And so I'm just going to that for me. Um, so I decided I would go visit Bowen Island and see her and let her make me lunch and hang out with her. I'm just looking for that. Okay. Varying to Freedom. So a lot of the book, the Zen of Poetry, is just about paying attention to details around us, like taking a day off. Um, you know, like the time I seen Derek there, like the time I decided to just go to Port Alberni live for my reading and take the whole day off, the like luxury of being on the ferry with bands playing, high school bands playing music. So this is Ferrying to Freedom. That day, Jude asked me what I would do, and I decided I would visit her. If I could add a day to any month, I would give it to April and visit Snug Cove tomorrow. I would read Harry Potter all morning in bed, inscribe dreams in its pages, then don my coral silk blouse with billowing sleeves and paint my nails cherry tree floral with lime leaves. I would breathe spring light, wear pink petals in my hair, and let the wind weave sea spray through my curls as I inhale the aroma of saltwater seaweed and ecosystems. Like orcas and humpbacks leaping the Pacific, I'd sail vibrations of blue-green story, to Bowen Island forests and trails, and hike hours in rich soil amid pine, spruce, redwood, and fir. Taste the starlight in royal blue skies, aquamarine blossoms traveling deep in the night, and live solely on my terms. And also going to read Sky Flowers, which is about Bowen Island. It was written to a painting by Jilly Watson. And I was looking at the beautiful branches in the trees, and they look like flowers to me. So um, this is just about using specific detail and imagination. Sky flowers. Leaf limbs mingle into buds. A canopy of butterflies setting sail. The blossoming of talent from a hidden cove of ideas. The work of the trunks to manifest largely the kernel within. To dream in blends and bends of sea green world. The magnificence and relief of standing tall. We are fluorescent fronds of tree fish, swimming through phosphorescent foam to a clear path of what we deserve to be. The mysticism of color, the aura of forest made tangible. Like ancient dragonflies, the esoteric heart of the world, tasting creation. We embrace permission and freedom to go directly to where we most need and want to be, an island cocoon of love, light, and safety. In the communion of trees, we learn by steadily working, day by day, season by season, stretching branches to finally flourish, that self-actualization is for the good of all. Our growth protects others. The evolution of consciousness mirroring meditation. So that's for everyone to go ahead and shine, go ahead and write, go ahead and be your strong, beautiful selves. I'm going to read one more poem from the book, and then we'll just have a little bit of time for questions and then hear from other readers. I'm going to read one of my early poems, and I'm just looking for it. Um, and it was a lost love poem and the heartache of lost love. And it just had strong symbolism. So it was my first one to get published in 2012, and I felt like it was my little good luck poem. And I got nominated for the Pushcart Prize. And it really doesn't do anything fancy except have some nice symbolism. So I just want to encourage everyone, like we can, our early poems can go out there and make a name for us. The summer we never had. In the summer we never had, there is time for endless evenings of coffee and poetry amid the spark of fireflies in the city heat. As voices from late night gatherings on porches drift in open windows, I no longer pretend you're in my room just to study. We are no longer pending on outside approval, only the potential we elevate in each other. In the summer we never had, I don't have to be anything more than I am. And it doesn't matter that my hair lets loose into wild Irish curls. There is red wine and passion, daisies that last the night. My single bed is luxurious enough, and I never have to get over you. I taste forever how it would have been and never let you go. So that's kind of a taste of some of the poems I wrote using the ideas I talk about in the book. And like Barbara mentioned, there's everything I've learned about editing, how to make poems tighter and stuff. And I use the specific examples of how I try to improve my work. So thank you so much.